A Port Moody family has filed a human rights complaint against Canadian Tire over what it says is a racially motivated incident that happened at the Coquitlam store. As CTV's Ben Milger reports, it is not the first time the retailer has been accused of racial bias against Indigenous people.
The Wilsons dropped their car off at this Canadian Tire for service and were told it would take about 90 minutes. So they went shopping.
We grabbed a buggy and we had filled it up with all kinds of household items.
Dawn Wilson says while paying, a security guard demanded to look in her 66-year-old father's backpack.
I looked away and smiled and tried to pretend it was normal so that my dad didn't feel uncomfortable. But when we got outside, less than a minute later, I looked at him and saw in his eyes that it wasn't okay what happened to him.
Feeling racially profiled and shaken by the experience, Wilson relayed the story to an automotive employee while picking up her car.
He looked at me and really loudly said in front of a room full of people that his dad taught him the difference between an Indian and a Native. An Indian comes from the reserve and begs and steals and demands money. And I asked him, what was I? What was my dad?
It happened in 2020, but the Wilsons' complaint is still before the BC Human Rights Tribunal.
Now you're physically assaulting me.
Canadian Tire issued an apology to a First Nations man after this 2017 incident in Regina, but not before protests at the store.
Par for the course for Canadian Tire. They're not showing a lot of class.
The retailer and complainant would later settle a human rights complaint. Mediation failed to resolve the Coquitlam case. Canadian Tire says it takes accusations of racial profiling seriously. The associate dealer who owns the store has been actively at the table, cooperating with the tribunal since the claim was filed. We believe that is the proper forum for these discussions, and we are not in a position to comment further, the company said in a statement. Wilson says she'd like to see systemic change.
People who look like us or, people of color should not have to feel nervous shopping.
If no settlement is reached, the Human Rights Tribunal will hold a public hearing. Ben Milger, CTV News, Vancouver.